It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design.
Why don't you be part of it?
It's the SDG Podcast. We're here talking with podcasters. Say hello and introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Chad Jetner.
I'm Chad Levine.
I'm Ben Story.
Jason Lamer.
And I'm Kyle Bacher. And I'm going to leave and let these gentlemen talk about.
We're going to talk about our experience at AWS reInvent 2022, which was awesome.
I did not go to that, so I'm out of here.
Thanks, Kyle.
You bet. Have fun.
So, 4 topics, right? 4 basic things that we're going to talk about, and then it's going to go all over the place because we did in Vegas. I thought the first thing that we should talk about is kind of a round robin, our approach to like signing up for the sessions. And first of all, we're assuming that everybody knows what AWS reInvent is, right? Like that's Amazon's massive conference in Las Vegas. It's always the last week in November. It was absolutely amazing. It was my first time. It was your first time, right? Your first time?
Too. And my first time.
Oh, so we were all brand new to this, right?
This is going to be a great session.
Oh my God. It was amazing. So, so you go online, you sign up. First thing that you do to prepare is you kind of sign up for a bunch of these sessions, right? Like these workshops, sessions, whiteboard sessions, all sorts of things. Did you have like a specific goal when you signed up for them or an approach?
Yeah, I did. I had like some target areas that I wanted to focus on based on recent clients that I've been at and one that I was going to. So my target areas were serverless technologies and specifically like the tooling around serverless, just because it seems like it's a pretty dynamic space. The second thing I noticed was that there were a few, I guess, prominent technologists that I had followed. Gregor Hope is one of them.
Can I really quick tell the story about Gregor?
Yeah.
So me and Jason shared a room, and Jason tweeted something. And we're early in the morning, right? And Jason tweeted something about the podcast and tagged Gregor in it, right? And oh my God, Gregor liked it and then retweeted it, and he squealed. He was like, oh my God, are you on Twitter? And I'm like, what, did Taylor Swift just retweet me? He's like, Gregor just retweeted me. I'm like, oh, this is the best day of my life. I'm like, you have kids, dude. What are you talking about? That was awesome.
There was a visible celebration.
That was cool. That was really cool.
Yeah, no, and it was like his session was. Well, the one that stuck with me was he talked about event-driven architectures, and people have talked about that forever, but he kind of turned it on its head a little bit and have you thought about them in terms of this and in terms of this? It's like, oh my gosh, of course not. No, I haven't.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was a little bit of a fanboy moment, but also it paid off from a technology perspective as well.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. What did you do? What was your approach?
Yeah, my approach was a little bit different just because for me being the strategic partner manager, I wasn't looking at technical sessions. I was looking at sessions to how to help grow some of our business. And AWS actually does a really good job laying out different tracks on the reInvent website that you can look at. If you're a technical person, they kind of highlight, here's some of the things that you should look at. And they had one for alliance leads. So I went out and just looked at what the AWS recommendations were for being an alliance lead. So I just went through and signed up for a lot of those and did a mixture of those sessions with some other partner sessions that were at the booth. So I just planned it out a little bit different when I was signing up.
Yeah, that was cool. And you were always, you came back out of every single one of those. You'd go to a session, you'd come back, because most of them were at the Venetian, right? A lot of them were at the Venetian.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time at the Expo and a lot of time at the Venetian, which was great because if you've never been to reInvent, and we'll probably talk more about this later, it spanned over 5 different casinos. So you're
so that's
you're walking forever. I think each one of us probably logged 20,000 plus steps every single day. I mean, it's massive. So just planning these things out, and I know we'll get into it later when we talk about what we would do differently, but there's a lot of things I would probably do differently knowing now after being a year
Yeah.
under my belt that I would definitely.
35,000 steps was my max. That was my peak for a day, and I felt it when I got home.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a lot.
Yeah, so I like to plan, and I'm a little bit of a planner, so I did a lot of research to figure out like what would be best for me being a non-AWS technical person.
Yeah, and you did something similar to Namer, right?
Yeah, basically same plan, I think, because we kind of serve the same role, right? So I was kind of looking for like serverless stuff or AWS technologies that I'm using currently or whatever. But I didn't realize, first of all, the amount of sessions is so vast. It's unbelievable. And then also, like, they send you an email to be like, hey, registration's open. You might want to go do that.
Yeah.
And you go out there like the hour it happens and like, most of the things are full immediately. I'm like, how can there be hundreds of sessions?
Yeah.
And I have to waiting list so many.
You got 50,000 people, you're right, going to this thing. You
Yeah.
don't realize the magnitude.
Well, and it took me a while to even figure out my strategy for like, how do I filter these correctly to find the ones I want?
Yeah.
Because they've got several knobs and switches on their website, but to like filter it down to the list that's relevant to you. And I quickly learned like if it had the word serverless in the title, booked.
Yeah.
It was all words on there.
So part of it was, technologies that I thought were relevant to what I'm doing right now, and part of it was what can I get into, or at least get on the waiting list.
That actually turned out to be a big deal and that's going to be one of our pro tips is like when you sign up immediately. When the sessions go live, jump right on there and do that because they've all of the serverless and a lot of like anything that looked interesting booked up immediately. Except, so my approach was I wanted to attend a lot of things that I haven't worked with before, right? Like something where I'd be able to benefit from sitting in front of an expert and being able to ask like a lot of really dumb questions. So I did a lot of the quantum computing sessions. So a lot of talk about AWS Rocket, and then I switched to the AI and ML track. So every session talked about SageMaker and all the improvements with SageMaker and Jupyter Notebooks, all that fun stuff. I tried to get in on those, and I tried to ask as many questions. And then a couple of them were like just random things, right? Like there was this one session around using AI to detect illegal phishing activity. And I'm like, that sounds insane. Like that sounds like you're making it up. And then they explain like what they're doing. I'm like, holy crap, that's an awesome use of the whole stack. It was amazing. And a little intimidating because those guys were so freaking smart. Like their intelligence level, like just they're talking about triangulating satellites and then coordinating that in SageMaker. Oh my gosh, it was great.
Yeah, that's one thing too. I noticed in some of the sessions where there was so much content that they were just giving it to you. But like, I just felt like, all right, I'm gonna have to find the slides for this because I can digest about half of this right now, but all of this is really good. But they were just cramming in like so much good information.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
I started like with a notebook, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
and then I was like, that's
right.
Well, it's hard to keep up with the notes and continue the learning. Sometimes, some people are a write it down type of person, then it resonates well, and then something I just need to see it sometimes. Like, especially a tool like SageMaker, it's a very visual tool, and it's like really interesting to see like how they're using the tool, right, to build their models.
It was great, and you're literally listening to the people that are actually building the tool, and they want you to participate in the session. They want you to ask questions, and they're active. Like the SageMaker product owner was in a lot of the sessions, and I saw him after a few. Right, like he's actively soliciting feedback. Like, hey, tell us how you're using them. I'm like, well, I'm not right now, but like I want to pretty soon.
But but those are good connections to make though, like at the conference, because maybe a year down the road you might be using SageMaker, and wow, I could see SageMaker doing X, Y, and Z. Now you have a contact that you can reach out to. Just that's one thing that I've learned from going to other conferences as well, is just making some of those connections with the product owners, because they do want your feedback. A lot, and because they want to make sure that their product is the best product it can be, and we're the ones using it, so you guys know the best, right, on way improvements can be made.
Well, I talked to, so one of the quantum computing sessions that I was at, I saw this woman as a PhD in physics, and I saw her on the expo floor the next day, And she was explaining something in the session that was like actually, I woke up thinking about them, like optical tweezers, where they're like arranging molecules to adjust the size and all this stuff. And I saw her at the thing, I'm like, can you explain that to me? And they're more than happy to. Like, all of the people in the sessions are also participants in the expo and everything else in the conference. So like, I'm like, hey, can you walk me through that again? Because I thought I heard you say optical tweezing and arranging. And she's like, yeah, we really actually, like, that's really how it works. I'm like, goodness gracious, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So
everybody's so approachable.
speaking of the expo, that for me, like, that was one of the highlights. They have that entire expo thing. And I know we all spent a ton of time. That was kind of our pivot point for everything, right? Like, if we're not doing anything, we're at the expo. It was massive. It was, I mean, this is relatively local podcast. It was the size of, it felt like 2 Minneapolis convention centers. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit.
It was huge.
It was massive.
It was very big.
It was unbelievable.
And it was nice how they had it broken out into communities. So if you know, if you wanted to learn about data, you could go to like one section, and that was just like the data community or whatever. So it was very well thought out.
Yeah, and then, I mean, every day they had, you know, that's where you go for lunch, that's where you go for happy hour, right? The Expo threw in a happy hour every single day, so just like 3:30, all of a sudden, little carts would show up with Stellas and drinks and stuff. But my favorite part of that my favorite part of the expo was the AWS Builder Corner, right? Where they just had random AWS folks that built products in their free time.
Yeah.
Using AWS tools and then using like some kind of like just the whole maker philosophy, right? Like, and it's literally build whatever the heck you want, and then they demo it and it flips over every day. So we saw, what did we saw? We saw a machine learning algorithm to help colorblind people detect when food goes bad. We saw there was an AI bartender. There was an AI brew club. There was, what else was there?
There was the one to monitor like people's stances and stuff like that. They mimicked it after dancing. Yeah. But it was a very cool innovation that you could help, you know, almost like a safety feature too. If like they could use it to monitor people, and if they're standing or walking like in a circle the same way, they maybe want to send out an alert to that person to say, hey, you might want to walk in the circle the other way, or maybe you need to go take a break because you're standing weird. So it was interesting how they were incorporating some of that machine learning and things like that into that as well.
Tons of stuff like that, where it was like AI ML with them like making
with
something.
IoT.
Yeah, combined with the IoT, like the foosball thing that we did. They had the foosball table where it would like take highlights of your game when you played against each other, and then like put together like a recap of
that's cool.
like all the scoring, and yeah, it was pretty cool.
And then the best part was every single one they had the little. It's almost a meme now. The AWS architectural diagram in the corner, right? With that had this connects to this connects to this. Here's all of the services that we're using, and then you can drill in and ask them specific questions. So it wasn't just like goofy fun. It was like actually useful for me to be like, what is that service doing, and how are you utilizing that to facilitate making beer or serving drinks or anything?
Yeah, and just from me learning AWS, it was very interesting to see those diagrams and how all these systems and different programs work together. Because like you just, you know, it's very challenging to like visually see it, but when you see it on a piece of paper and then see the product live and they explain it to you in nice dumbed down terms, basically, things really start clicking.
Well, just having like a concept that I can get into, right? Like a bartender.
Right.
Yeah.
And then saying, all right, so here's what this is. Here's how what we're doing with IoT Greenfield and all of those other services. I'm like, okay. That actually like nails that concept for me a little bit better than, you know, reading a Hello World application on their documentation site.
It was cool exposure to services that we might not typically use every day. We use a million of them, right?
Yeah.
But there's so many, and then you see it in use on like kind of a real world application that'll stick with you. And then like if you run into something that's remotely like that at work, you can be like, hey, I know what we can use for this.
Yeah, exactly.
I liked how they changed it up. I think they had the same things there for like the first couple of days, and then you came back like the third day, and it was like a whole new set of like 15 or 20 innovations that these AWS employees came up with.
Yeah, and then I spent across from the builder was they had this massive area, like AWS services, right? And each services basically just had the service category, and then it had a whiteboard, and then they had like some of the developers on that service to walk you through things. And they were giving away $25 AWS credits when you talked to them, right? So I got a little stack of credits. But like for me, I was the guys that were working on AWS Neptune were there, and I haven't had a chance to use it yet in real life, but I was able to go up and talk to the guy about like Cypher, the Cypher language and how they're implementing that. It's brand new. It's they've just introduced support for it within the last month, and like their roadmap. Like that was the big thing for me, talking to all these services, all these AWS services, and talking to them not just about like what's there today, but like what's your roadmap, what's coming up. Yeah.
And for the technical people, it's really good to take questions to them. That's why they're there. That's as like another kind of pro tip is have a few good questions queued up going into these conferences, and try to find the people there that work with this stuff every single day to help get your questions answered, because it's just amazing what you can learn just by talking to a couple people.
Yeah. Did you have an expo highlight?
I don't think I spent as much time in the expo as everyone else. But I had a session in the expo where they kind of walked through some instrumenting lambdas, and they were talking about some new capabilities that I think that was, I don't know if it was released during the conference or quickly or earlier in the month, but that was really interesting. Like just to see that working and get a chance to like be right there asking questions of how that really works.
Yeah, there were quite a few sessions like that where it was like kind of a new thing or not even released yet, and they are soliciting feedback, so they totally want you to ask questions. I think we were in another one that was about Lambda, that was about their fix for Java cold starts, and it's super new, right?
Yeah.
And that was super cool technology, and they kind of walked you through how it works, and then like a couple of the pitfalls, and then they totally wanted feedback from everybody on it, because it's like it just got announced. So,
right.
Yeah.
So I think maybe jumping forward to what I would do differently, I would probably figure out how to get back to the expo. I think logistically, most of my sessions were not always around the Venetian.
Yeah, and for me as a consultant, like it was just great to go talk to almost every single one of the vendors there, and there was hundreds. Right? Hundreds of vendors. And I didn't care about the swag. I was amazed by how many people were giving away branded socks. Like that seemed weird to me. Like everybody's like, "Hey, you want some socks, man?" I'm like, "No, I'm good on socks. Why are you being weird?" Right? Like it's like, we got this. So
that's true.
I have like 5 pairs of socks from just the expo. I gave them all to my daughter. She loves them. She's like, "Launch Darkly has socks?" Yeah, of course. Like, you don't know. Anyway, thanks for the socks, guys. They were great. But talking to each one of the vendors and just getting a demo on what they're doing, even if I didn't have a use case for it, I was excited to talk to like everybody and get like a layer deeper than just the brochure on their website, right? Like actually seeing these guys show us what they're doing so that we can potentially be a little bit better at recommending to our clients, different vendors, different tools, all of that.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, and for me, my expo highlight was probably hanging out at the partner booth and doing some breakout sessions there. So at the expo, all the vendors, they all kind of have their own little mini 15, 20 minute breakout sessions that I didn't realize that was a thing. And then like a lot of the AWS, like the AWS Marketplace or the partner booth or like all those different services, they'll host 15 to 20 minute sessions like right at their booth too. So it's really good like networking and just to talk to the different people and just hang out at those types of things for me versus always going to the big huge sessions with hundreds of people, because then I can really quickly follow up and ask follow-up questions in a more smaller setting than the big huge ones, because everybody's rushing up to the front of the room to get their questions answered. So
yeah, and I like hearing the other questions too. Like I don't in sessions I would ask a question here and there, but like some of the stuff was so far over my head. I loved hearing other people ask much smarter questions and trying to keep up. That's right. Like, okay, I don't know what to do about it. Yeah. You spent some time in the expo, right?
Oh yeah, I would say the highlight for me was the builder stuff. It wasn't close,
Yeah.
because I'm kind of a nerd for maker stuff, and just to see people's super creative ideas and how they incorporated all these AWS services with hardware and to create some idea that they just dreamed up, and it was so creative and awesome.
Well, and then I'm hammering on the AI bartender. I apologize, but they literally bought a Ninja blender from Costco.
Yeah.
Ripped out a circuit board. Stuff was on a level that I don't think I had seen before.
Right.
And
And it was cool because the blender would tell you every step of the way, like adding liquid, adding ice, or whatever step it was they were blending. So it was really innovative and really cool.
that was amazing to me to see just the what they did, and at the level that they did it. And then they all want to scan your badge. That's a big thing at the booth. Everybody's like, hey, can I scan your badge? Can I scan your badge? Because it gives you your contact information and everything else. But for the AWS guys, they want to scan the badges because they can come back. They will get to be able to present again next year that same thing. So they were big into that. And that was, the builder section was really cool.
Yeah. Other than the partner stuff, I did love the builder section as well. It was just interesting.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know. What you
inspiring,
can,
right?
Yeah.
Man, I could just hack a blender.
Or I can blow air into a flute with an air compressor and then get some things to plug up the holes and have it play music.
Right.
Yeah.
Just
amazing.
the little things that they were doing with this technology was really cool. Very outside the box thinking.
And then some of them were like goofy little, the flute one was it a flute or was it a recorder?
A recorder.
Yeah,
Sorry.
They had a
It was a
little thing that
recorder.
played the recorder, and then obviously hooked up to AWS, and and some of those were just fun little projects.
Right.
The women that were doing the food recognition were actually trying to solve a real world problem, right?
Right.
Hey, our friend is colorblind. And one of the real world applications of that is they don't know when their food is bad, right? Because they're on the scale where, the coloring, actually, they can't really see it. So using AWS recognition, they were able to build out this whole thing that tells them thumbs up, thumbs down, it's gone bad, or it's not cooked all the way through, or whatever. I think I talked to them for an hour about what they were doing. That was awesome.
Super cool, yeah.
And the fact that they're all just so excited to tell you about it was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Expo was definitely amazing. I like talking to the IntelliJ guys were there too. And I was talking about their roadmap was really fun because they've got kind of different directions they're going with things. I love that too. But assuming we're going next year, what would you have done differently? What will you do differently next year based on your experience this year? What would you recommend for anybody that's going to, what would you recommend they do?
Yeah, well, I think we brought this up earlier, but when we got the email about registration's open, I think I logged in maybe an hour and a half after I got the email. So I thought
Same here. I'm I'll be good.
Yeah, which was clearly not the case. So I think for sure the first thing I will do is be sitting and waiting. And I will go and log in immediately.
Yeah.
I think also this being the first year, not knowing what to expect, having a plan or at least a general idea of the kind of types of sessions and having a notion of logistics too when I sign up for things.
Yeah.
That will make a big impact on I think how I plan out the rest of the week. Because there were a few times where I would this session's great, and it's they are completely on opposite ends of
the strip. Yeah.
Right. So given travel time, that's not going to happen. So I got to pick one, right? So I think those are two things right off the bat. And then I learned this year that I need better walking shoes. So just knowing how that will work, I'll probably pack a little bit differently.
I actually saw this. Somebody recommended before you go on vacation, walk 15,000 steps a day, right? Because the abruptness with which your body just kind of shuts down a little, well, not shuts down, but the effect for me, because I'm an aggressive sitter. I very much enjoy sitting. It's one of my favorite things to do.
I'm with you.
And so going from sitting to 20,000 on average steps a day.
Yeah.
Over 5 days.
Oh, goodness gracious, that takes a toll.
Yeah, I think by Wednesday, and probably by Wednesday, I'm like, man, I don't know if I can walk the rest of this week. But I mean, you get your second wind or whatever. But yeah, I would pack a little bit differently.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, for me, definitely the logistics.
Yeah.
Because when I was signing up for my sessions, I didn't realize that one was at the Mandalay Bay, and then I was signing up for one that maybe it gave me 15 minutes to get back to the Venetian. It's you just can't do that. It's just not possible because the busing with the busing in between all the different casinos and hotels, you got to give yourself 30 to 45 minutes.
I was going to say, I thought I saw allow 30 minutes between sessions, and I'm like, well, that's a lie. But you got to give yourself 45 to an hour.
I agree, 45 at minimum. Because and it's kind of a little bit of a bummer, right? Because you don't feel like you can make as much sessions when you're allowing that much time, but you really gotta just do it and space those things out, or try to pick more sessions at a couple locations that are really close to each other.
Yeah.
And maybe just watch the recordings or something of this other sessions that you want to go to. And I would maybe try to, me personally, mix in a little bit more leadership with other things just to get a different mix of things. Because a lot of the sessions I went to just kind of helped reaffirm everything that I've been doing with my new role over the last year. Mm-hmm. So it'd be good just to kind of get some other perspectives on how other companies are using the technology from a leadership standpoint.
Yeah. I noticed, but my biggest thing was that 30-minute time between sessions is that's nonsense. Don't do that. Allow yourself a lot more time.
Yes.
And for me, I'd be walking, there was one where for some reason there wasn't a shuttle. I'm like, I can walk from the Venetian all the way to MGM in 30 minutes, and I barely made it, but I had to speed walk, and by the time I got to the MGM, I was sweaty, I was gross, and I was exhausted, and I could not focus on what the session actually was. So, what about you?
Echo everything you guys said, right? And I was kind of lucky because I had scheduled things where I had a few days where I had multiple sessions in the same hotel, so that helps a lot. One thing I didn't know, because I hadn't really done big convention in Vegas before, is I kind of forgot how massive the hotels were, and I've never been in the convention centers at the hotels. So you talked about walking from the Venetian to the MGM. Well, that's just half the battle. You get to the casino door, and then it's like a 20-minute walk indoors through MGM to get back to the convention center part. So you need to allocate time for that.
And just the crowd of people, right? I heard it was Vegas was 90 to 95% capacity during reInvent, and that just made everything that much more difficult, right? It was just dense with people.
For sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I would maybe also try to, it's a little different thing I guess nobody said, was some of my coolest sessions I thought were technologies that I thought were probably relevant to what I'm doing, but I haven't really used them much, and I'm I kind of know what this is, but I haven't used it and I want to know more about it. I would try to book more things like that, because those were kind of they were also the ones that were the hardest to keep up on, like you guys mentioned, because I hadn't used it before.
Yep.
But at least then you're kind of aware of what's in the box there, and you kind of can throw it in your toolkit as, hey, if I have this problem, I might use this.
Right. Yeah.
So I maybe would do more of those, probably.
I would say my biggest tip is, I got a couple. One, don't try to book your entire day with sessions, right? Don't try to make sure that every hour is accounted for with a session, because it's just overwhelming.
You're going to be exhausted by 2 days in.
Yeah,
For sure, you literally will be.
You'll be exhausted. The stress level of just getting from one thing to the next is too much, and then just your ability to absorb that much. Maybe I'm just a dope, but
No.
I just after a while, I just started giving up, because I did that. I tried to book every single day, just solid with sessions throughout the day. And by the end of day 2, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to miss. And I felt bad for missing one. For some reason, I felt bad if I was going to miss one, because I'm like, I signed up, I got a reserved spot, I should be there. No, don't worry about it. Also, don't stress out if you don't actually get a reserved spot at the session, because almost everything I was interested in that didn't have a reserved seat, I could walk up and walk right in. I've heard that wasn't the case for you.
Well, I think that's a good point. So I think for me, I had a very different experience the first day versus the rest of the week. Mm-hmm. So being the first day, I wasn't really sure logistics and how things worked and what alternatives were. And like, I got into one session on Monday and I found out it was an accident because they let a bunch of people in on the wait list that they shouldn't have. So part of that was, I think, knowing to get to the sessions where I'm on the wait list, I should have gotten there earlier. That would have helped. And then I think just flat out, like, people are just figuring out logistics, and it's just it gets easier as the week goes on. I don't know if people leave or they choose different tactics or whatever, but it just seemed like the wait list lines were shorter.
But I feel like everybody, after the first day, like, everybody kind of came into that, like, oh yeah, we don't have to get to everything. So everybody kind of gave up on
that's true.
rigidly following their schedule, and then if you want to see something, just walk up.
Yeah, and the other thing we learned, like, there are these content hubs where it's like, okay, you didn't get into a session, but if you can find a content hub and the session you're trying to get into is playing on one of the like 5 or 6 screens they have in the content hub, like, you can just go there and listen to it, with some wireless headphones or something, right? Like, didn't know that.
Yeah, that's a pro tip for sure.
In the content hub, then you still got to do like the little labs and kind of play along with some of the live content, right?
So that's a different thing. Right? That's yet another pro tip, which is like, because they have these different type of presentations, right? So just a presentation is, I think, called a breakout session, but there's some like workshop ones where you are actually with an AWS person and they kind of walk you through how to do something. And I was on the wait list for one of those, didn't get in, but they kind of grabbed me and said, hey, if you just want to do the workshop, we have a big lab set up over here and you can just do it. And so it was the same thing. It's just you weren't listening to the guy talk, but there's like experts in there also. Like, if you have a question, that'll come over and like talk you through it or
so
whatever.
It's still nice that you get to work with the technology and still get to ask some questions. And
and I mean, you don't have to have your own account or anything. Like, they have the account provisioned for you and they have the lab set up. You just like click start and it walks you through it. So that was like a cool alternative when you were like, at least for the workshops, if you were on the wait list for one of those and didn't get in.
Yeah, I did one of those towards one of the last days, and I was bummed that I just didn't book with that, right? Like, it's one thing to hear the sessions and hear them explain things to you, and then you can ask questions. Those workshops were really, really cool.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then also don't just spend your time in sessions, right? Go to the expo and talk to everybody at the expo. And then they had in one of the hotels in MGM, they had this Deep Racer, right, which is the ML little remote control. That was awesome. And they had so many things like that all over the place, right? Like in MGM, they had the Deep Racer track and the whole explanation about what's going on, and then you could go off in a workshop, build your model, and then you bring it out and they'll race it around the track. I tried it, crashed immediately. I don't know how the thing caught fire, but that stuff was really great, and that stuff is stuff that I didn't expect to see when I went there, right? Like, I was just like, oh, it's going to be a bunch of sessions, and then there's going to be like vendors, and I really didn't know just the scale of it and the variety of stuff that you can see.
Well, just even outside the expo hall where they the World Cup was going on, they had lounge areas where people could hang out, network, watch the World Cup. They had different activities out there too as well. So there's definitely plenty of different things to do and network, and just like you said, just don't go to sessions. Like, because when you're busy going to sessions, then you're not getting networking in. I think networking and just learning from other people is so important.
Yeah.
That you're just spending so much time getting session to bus to session, and you're so caught up in trying to remember everything you just learned that you're not like taking the time to relax a little bit, talk to some people, and learn to see what other people are doing as well.
I did watch the World Cup in that huge line. Oh, actually, you stopped in for a little bit.
Yeah.
But me and Anna watched the U.S. This is still the group stage, so we won, which was awesome. But it was great because it was a bunch of AWS nerds. I mean, literally, like probably 1,500 people, would you say, in that one area, all watching the World Cup, all watching the United States, and when we won, it was chaos.
Yeah, and it was cool because they also, like, on the other side of the room, they had another game going on. So, depending on, again, this conference is huge. There's people coming from all over the world, and soccer is so big, right? I just thought it was really cool how they incorporated some of this stuff into the whole conference to give people an opportunity to watch the games, cheer for their countries, kind of come together, a little bit too. and just watch and hang out.
That's that one thing that you said about networking. I think we made a lot of friends in Vegas.
Yes.
And that was huge. Like, plan for going out afterwards, and just open up your heart to Las Vegas. Let Vegas in your heart. Jason, some of us might have let a little too much Vegas into their hearts, but no, that was great. Like, we made connections out there on the first night.
Yeah.
Ended up hanging out with these guys, 3 nights in a row, 4 nights in a row, and then every time we'd see them, just, hey, you made it. You know, that was awesome. That was awesome.
Yeah, so, definitely take advantage of the free happy hours events that go on after the conference, because that's the time where people are a little more relaxed. They're a little bit more focused on just hanging out and having a good time. That I think, me personally, I probably made most of my connections by just attending different vendor events and just sitting down and just talking to people. And it's just so interesting to hear what other people are doing at other organizations, and we made some really good connections with a different company. And it's just interesting to hear how similar we are to them as well.
We found our doppelganger in New York.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
That's maybe another
Hydrate.
thing.
I will say, hydrate frequently.
So that's maybe another thing I would do differently to get back to that one is schedule those things ahead, because you got to register for them, right?
Oh,
and there's
yes.
literally a social event at like every restaurant and bar in every hotel.
Yeah.
It is crazy, and so like finding which one you want to go to and registering for it ahead of time would probably be because it is overwhelming how many there are.
Right.
And there's an unofficial list of somebody that they put out a spreadsheet that had literally every single after party that they heard about, and you could legit sign up for 3 a night.
Yeah.
I think some of us did. Drink water. Drink lots of water. But the fact that was available to us, and we had fun. We had a really, really nice time after hours.
Yeah,
Really
definitely
nice.
take advantage of that time. And even if you meet somebody in the expo, ask them what they have going on, because maybe they might have something that they're interested in to then further your conversations outside of the main conference.
Or maybe you're getting in the elevator when you're leaving your room. Do you want to tell that story? It's a fun
Go
story.
ahead, it's amazing. I think it's all yours though.
Well, me and Chad, the Chads got in an elevator, right? We were just leaving our room, and we were excited. We were really happy. We were super
Beginning of the
pumped to
conference,
be there. Yeah.
possibilities were endless.
So we get into a quiet elevator, and there was like 6 people in there, and one of us, I don't know which one, was like, "Hey, what's going on, everybody? Who's excited to be in Vegas?" And I just start talking to people, and I forget exactly what I said, but I'm like, "You guys all here for the Nerd Fest?" And this one guy goes, "No, actually, I'm here for something different." And we started talking to the dude, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm a photographer for this like sports affiliation, and I'm going to be doing photography for this sumo event." Our eyes lit up. Like, I just like, "What?" He goes, "Hey, you guys want to go? I can put 4 of you on the VIP." I'm like, "Yes, we want to go. Obviously, we want to go see sumo wrestling." So within 3 minutes of getting on an elevator, by the end of it, I got a text message from the guy, and we didn't think it was real. We're like,
It was real.
he's not serious. Like, we're not actually going to watch sumo wrestling, are we? That's insane. No. 2 days later, sumo wrestling, I was so happy. There's tears rolling down my face when it was going on. That was so great.
We saw the largest Japanese man in Japan's history.
Yes.
Oh yeah, right.
Yubo. His name was-
Amazing.
Yeah, Yubo. I gotta ask for that picture. I
Right.
still didn't,
Oh,
he
yeah.
didn't send it yet.
We need the picture.
We need the picture.
Oh gosh. Sorry, I'm just having a moment. What was your highlight? The absolute highlight. Don't say being there with my friends.
No, well, being there with my friends was obviously, that's great, right?
Because I was gonna say that.
Well, that's just a given. I mean, it was fun. I love the energy of the conference was just unbelievable. Just being there, being immersed, and just being focused on that was really cool. But I thought the the networking, like the sessions are great. Like the learning is good, but the networking in the happy hour, like after hour events, just to be able to, like I said, learn what other people are doing was probably my favorite part. I like to talk to people and get out and learn what other people are doing. So networking is awesome. So for me, like they all went to sumo wrestling. I found a whiskey tasting at one of the events. So like going and being able to sample some whiskeys I've never had and some bourbons and just talk to people with like-mindedness was super fun for me.
Yeah. All right, so we've already talked about sumo. So what was your second favorite part of being on there?
You nailed the sumo thing. Okay. Well, I think, it's a huge conference, but it's very well put on, right? Like it's very well organized, it's very well done, and I feel like the immersion factor, right? And just being, you're there to learn about AWS, to network, to just engage, and
They make it easy.
they make it super easy, and there's such a variety of ways to engage. I think we talked about that, right? Like there's sessions, there's guided labs, there's on-demand labs that you can do on your own while you're waiting for your next session. The expo, like there's just so many ways that you can engage and learn. But just the immersion factor, right? Like that's what you're there for, like the whole time. Was really helpful and just it was a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
and I think that's true, for AWS, but I think that's true for us too. I think we had time to talk about, just client questions or like, oh, how have you used this service before? Or, like there was a lot of that amongst us too, where we wouldn't have had time to normally
And
do
we
that.
don't get to
right?
hang out a lot.
Right.
So the fact that
Exactly.
you and I had a long conversation about like, hey, are you going through this? Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going through that same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. How are you? Like,
Right.
just being there with us, like us being there,
Yeah.
was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Just when we were at dinner and just being able to talk about the sessions and things that we learned and then we could learn from each other because like Chad might have a question of the other Chad that's like, hey, I'm working on this. I found this in the session. I found this really helpful. Even though you might not have been to that session, now you just learned something too,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And just have those nice candid conversations was really fun.
Yeah. All right, second favorite highlight.
Yeah, obviously sumo.
Sumo was sumo.
Come on.
I wonder next year, like, how are we going to top that? What are we going to do? I believe we can do it.
Yeah.
I just can't visualize what that's going to be.
We've got a year to figure it out, and we will.
I have a feeling it will come from you too. I think you're going to find what that is. I just have that feeling.
I'm going to do my best.
No
Yeah.
pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
Second favorite, there's so many things, right? I don't know how to pick. A lot of awesome sessions. Having time to focus for a week on just learning,
Yeah.
amazing, right? Because we don't really get that, right?
Yeah.
Like we're working and solving, and so we don't really get to carve out a lot of time to learn stuff like on customer time, right? And so to just focus on AWS and what's new here and what can I learn, that was pretty awesome. So a lot of awesome sessions. It just kind of gave me ideas. Seeing Gregor speak, kind of bucket list.
We're going to take Gregor on this and let him know how much we love him because
you should. He'll reply.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I just wish I could be sleeping in the same room as you. When you wake up.
I'll record my reaction.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a good answer.
But that's a great answer. That's a great answer. And that's one of my things that I'll do differently next year is I'm not going to try to work. I'm going to take the week off of actually, leave my client laptop at home, all of that stuff. Because I woke up Monday, 4 hours, work on my project. And then as the week went on, that number kind of dwindled, right? 4 hours on Monday, a few on Tuesday, Wednesday just one, Thursday no.
I've tried to do that at other conferences too, and you always have really good intentions.
I had amazing intentions, and by the end of it, I'm like, hey guys, next couple days, I'm gonna be actually off.
Yeah,
And
it's hard.
yeah, that was difficult. Outside of sumo, I think I'm gonna be lame, and I'm gonna say it was the perfect group of guys to be with, right? And Anna, it was the perfect group of people to be out in Vegas with because we got to hang out. We don't have to hang out
For sure.
at home, same, and just that part of it was I'm I'm gonna get all weepy, but like, it was so cool. It was so great because every single night, and one of my second favorite things was like by the third day, Jason was going to try to moderate a little bit. He's like, I can't, and we would just look at him. We'd be like, it's like, you guys. And by the end of it, we're like, all right, we're just going to accept the fact that we're going to be up till 4 a.m. every single morning. And we're going to be tired a little bit.
Yeah.
That was great.
I don't know if we want to go back and kind of circle back to what we're kind of highlighted of our. I mean, we've dabbled in a little bit of it, but just being just going in and learning for me, just about building and improving our solutions. It gave me a lot more insight to my day-to-day job to help SDG differentiate ourselves through various levels of, whether that's Lambda or DynamoDB or different solutions that we've been building for our customers, and then giving those back to AWS. It gave me some really good insight on how to do that. So just going there and learning some of those insights and being a part of the keynotes. We didn't go to all of them, but the partner keynote was really good, and just kind of immersing yourself in those keynotes and just was kind of a couple session highlights for myself.
Yeah, well, I think one of Gregor's sessions was probably the one that I would pick. I mean, it was talking about the topic that's very prevalent. A lot of people are, discussing it, but just kind of taking it to the next level, and here are some nuances of.
Do you remember what one of those nuances was? Not to put you on the spot, but.
Boy, well, one nuance was the way in which that you are communicating. So, in an event-driven architecture, right? Messages on a topic on a queue, right? Being published at different places. The way in which you communicate that message, right? There are multiple patterns that you can implement by doing that, and some of them, they're not all created equal, right? That's probably the easiest one to summarize quickly.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of other ones where, the way you think about the problem has significant impacts around, how coupled your applications are, for example. So,
Yeah.
oh man, I could.
And he was super pragmatic. I was in that same session. I loved it because he said a lot of things that I thought were validating. Where he's like, sometimes it's good to be coupled because there's a lot of sometimes you have to fight that a little bit, right? Where you're like, no, I don't think we should be event driven here because we own both sides of the integration.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's a million times harder to debug things that are event driven and asynchronous in production. Right. So if we own both sides of the integration, it's totally cool to be coupled. And he said that, and I was like, yes, I totally agree with you.
Right.
And so that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And you just had a lot of little tidbits like that where, it's not just, now we are in the age of event-driven architecture, therefore you will always do these things, right? And people kind of want those mandates of this is the correct way to do architecture, and he had a lot more of a message of which is I think how we do it around here is well, what's the problem we're solving? Let's apply the correct pattern for that problem. So that was super cool to just hear somebody who's a legend in our industry say those things and kind of validate, I guess we are doing it right.
Yeah.
I think for the highlight for me was just being around some of the smartest people in our industry, right? So I was talking earlier about AWS Parquet, and hearing those people explain to me, right? I used to think I was pretty smart, and now I know, oh my God, there's a level way beyond this that these guys are playing in, and being around those people, asking questions to those people, and actually finding out oh yeah, they're actually super happy to answer questions from a guy like me on this concept that is just insane, right? They're just doing ridiculous stuff, and they're able to explain it back to us in a way that I can actually understand and kind of repeat, I think, a little bit, and actually kind of recognize, oh, okay, to your point, yeah, I'm never going to use this, or I'm not going to use this for another generation, probably, but eventually.
But they're super passionate about what they do, so it's fun to talk to them about it.
Yeah, that was the big thing.
They explain it well,
yeah.
and you're like, man, these guys are super smart. I'm like, you know what I'm good at? Get a list out of a database.
Yeah. Select where in. I could do that all day and all night.
I got that all day.
Yeah. Most wanted to explain back to me. You ever selected all star from a database? I mean, that's my thing. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, there were a million good sessions. I don't know that I could pick any one. There was one the Netflix security engineers did that I thought was super awesome. I guess that was maybe my favorite one from a technical perspective because they solved a very practical problem that we all have, which is like, and they have it at a large scale because it's Netflix, right? So they have thousands of apps, and they wanted like a way to not impose code changes or instrumentation on their devs. That was like, they went through the requirements, and that was one of them. That's a hard one, right? Mm-hmm. But they wanted to identify all IAM policies that were, too wide open, right? And just boil it down to what they needed. And they went through their whole process of like, which was very scientific about like, here's the various tools in AWS that could do this for us, like CloudTrail and IAM Access Analyzer and like a handful of other ones. And here's why they don't work. Because it doesn't do this service or it doesn't meet this requirement or whatever. And then they showed how they basically dug into the code of AWS X-Ray, which is like their kind of APM tool, and found methods in there that have interceptors for all API calls. And they wrote their own hooks and just made a library that got injected automatically into all their Java apps. And so it was amazing. And it was like they did all this research and then just a little bit of code. And they put it into a dependency that everybody has to pull into their app anyway. And I'm like, you guys are awesome. And then I'm like, are you going to open source it? And they're like, I don't think so.
That's great.
So yeah, that was a highlight.
All right. Same time next year. See you guys all there.
Yeah,
I'm in.
For sure.
Awesome. I'm so excited. All right, that's the podcast. Bye, guys.
Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.